and let us all do we can to build a better future.
First of all, I want to remind everybody, you go into the show notes. It links to Substack newsletter. That newsletter is free, is sent out every Thursday afternoon. It has all the source links so you can follow along and do your own research, which we like to have you do. Also, the newsletter goes out, so you'll get a reminder of the show coming up, even if certain platforms fail to notify you. So the midterm elections, Kit. First of all, I
Hooray.
guess my own take on this is that it is showing that the American empire is, shall we say, stable. The empire, not necessarily the people or anybody else, but the empire is stable.
Mm.
People don't really want change. They don't want revolution. They kind of want to keep things as they are because that's where we're at. But what interested me, this article from Axios, first of all, shows that midterms drew further TV viewers than 2018. And again, more and more people are online using streaming services, social media. So that actually makes a certain amount of sense. But people tuned in on more people tuned in on Tuesday compared to the 2014 midterms, but things were just kind of, I remember that time, and there
Mm-hmm.
wasn't all that much that was terribly interesting. So there
Right.
was that as well. Moving in though, some of the more interesting statistics is only 7% of TV viewers were aged 18 to 34.
Wow.
A quarter of them were 35 to 54, and the majority, 65%, were 55 and older.
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack with
There's
this
so
midterm.
much to unpack here, Kit.
Okay, so when we were at least given our analysis on this on Tuesday and Wednesday with the aftermath, first and foremost, obviously this midterm election failed to inspire anyone really to think that they were making a difference. And I know with yesterday when the results were coming in, both sides were telling all their supporters or their rival supporters, or the rivals, supporters, oh, cope because we won, cope because we won X amount of seats. At the end of the day, if you voted Democrat, if you voted Republican, the corporate donors had the big final say. They are the huge winners. Yes, the Republicans got the House. The Democrats shot themselves in the foot. Could the Democrats maybe win the Senate? Well, there's a potential runoff happening in Georgia, and there's a few other states that are up in the air. But Jesus, Democrats, I mean, I know you're losing on purpose, but you can at least put up some kind of attempt to show that you care about losing or that you want to win. Let's look at the Congressional Progressive Caucus and all those progressive heavy hitters that made a name for themselves from 2016 to 2018 and onward. Where is your movement? Where is the inspiration to get people to turn out to vote? Everyone's saying that democracy was saved last night. No, it wasn't. And even then, with the aftermath, nothing has fundamentally changed. Nothing is going to get done. We're still going to give billions of dollars to Ukraine. We're still going to do, again, constant regime change wars overseas. Big oil is going to have the final say. Our infrastructure is not being invested in. People are losing their homes, their small businesses. We got student debt. We have medical debt. We have an ongoing homelessness crisis here in America. So in all, what was done yesterday and today? Nothing. The day still keeps going on. The great movements, the great political revolution that was promised to us after 2016, the whole idea of people actually making an impact, it has withered and died on the vine. Let's be real here. Anyone that's saying that, this is the time where we could really start making an impact. If you're a Democrat or Republican and you're thinking that somehow you made a difference by voting for one of the two parties, tell me what it's like to believe in Santa Claus. Tell me what it's like to believe in leprechauns. Tell me what it's like to believe in the Tooth Fairy, because these politicians don't like you. They don't think about you. They don't respect you. And I hope eventually this catchphrase will catch on to all of my viewers, right? I hope all of you understand this too and share it with other people. The politicians in Washington, D.C. don't like you, they don't think about you, and they don't respect you. So what is the incentive for younger people or anyone else to even follow this on television? I mean, at least Fox News was able to draw in higher viewers because it's at least a somewhat entertaining platform, but CNN, MSNBC, they got nothing.
All I'm going to say right now is when I vote, it is usually a protest vote.
Yep.
And that's what happened when I went to vote. And by the way, the polling place was hopping, which was good to see that.
Mine
But
was somewhat all right. It
yeah,
was
mine was
yeah.
hopping like it was in the afternoon, man, and people. I mean, they were trying to find me a space to vote. I mean, it was something. So
One thing I have to say, at least a takeaway, and I've mentioned this on the Tuesday show because I voted on Tuesday, but also on Wednesday as well. The Illinois Libertarian Party, I was really impressed with how many people they've put on the ballot.
I was
For a
too, and
third
I
party,
voted for several
yeah,
of them. So I
yeah,
mean, I
no, no,
ended up,
yeah,
yeah, just because I'm so angry.
yeah.
Um,
I voted for third parties. I voted for the Greens. There was one workers party or something like that of that nature. But the Libertarians really stepped up their game. I've never seen
Big
them
time.
have so many people running for different offices and to have them successfully on the ballot. That was an incredible sight to see. We've been covering elections here in the state of Illinois since 2017, and for a third party, the Illinois Libertarian Party really stepped up. We have very harsh draconian laws that prevent third parties from being on the ballot or even be on the debate stage. And that was a sight to see. I hope that eventually other parties here in Illinois, third parties, can follow the example what the Libertarians did.
Yeah. Well, in addition to all that you've had to say there, I think it is what's a couple of things that I think are critical here. And it means, first of all, that younger people, and I'm saying even younger people, I'm even talking people who are, shall we say, older younger people, younger than me, but certainly not necessarily college age students, they're not watching television. They're not watching the networks. They're not watching cable TV, and there's kind of a limited number of those channels, that more than when I was a kid, certainly, but there's still a limited number of those channels that are actually doing that kind of live election coverage. They're getting their stuff very clearly from social media. That's how they're tracking things. They may be on Twitter. I actually was checking out the Washington Post. The Washington Post was keeping track of everything and watching things on Twitter. And I think the takeaway on this is, peril. You're at your own peril if you deny the impact of social media and the links it promotes when it comes to people tracking events in real time.
Mm-hmm.
And as I've often pointed out, back in the day when I was a kid, we had 4 networks in Chicago, television networks in Chicago on VHF. And then, and you could also watch on Channel 11. You could get really snooty and watch their news coverage, but that was about it. So it meant that most of the people in the city of Chicago were watching similar networks. They were getting similar information. And again, that kind of monopoly is never good, but now you've got people getting information from all over the place, including what could be some rando Twitter account with
Mm-hmm.
somebody speculating something, and it gets people to not trust the news that they're getting from anybody. It gets people to not trust our institutions, and seeing that younger people just are not watching the TV when it comes to these ongoing in progress nights. And that always been the big thing for me. Election night was
Mm-hmm.
always a TV night. I'm not a huge TV watcher, but it's always been a huge TV night. This year I didn't particularly bother because I cut the cord on my cable. But I think that this means that we're in a different media headspace. And I
Mm-hmm.
think the people of this country and any other country need to be aware that when you've got age segregated groups getting their information from very different sources, that is something to reckon with. If people
Agreed.
don't trust the process, they don't trust the institution, that can lead to the collapse of those institutions.
Something else too to take away, and that is, television as a media force, while it can still be somewhat relevant, we have to remember that, as you pointed out, we're able to get information at light speed in a matter of
Hmm.
seconds through our smartphones or through our computers, be it a, laptop or anything of that nature. But television as a medium, as an outlet to get information is slowly going the pathway of the radio, which radio, I know that it's important too, but societies and people have changed over time to where we need instant information all the time. So why sit in front?
24/7.
Yeah. So why sit in front of the television waiting for an update when your smartphone can just give it to you just like that?
Yeah.
It's a matter of seconds.
And you don't necessarily know who the source is.
That is
And
true.
we've seen what's been going on with this fiasco with the new paid for checks on
Yep.
Twitter, which is where a lot of people do go to Twitter for play-by-plays when news is happening.
And
We know that this checkmark system is proving to be a disaster.
well, here's the thing. It's the whole idea of being verified on Twitter or Instagram or any of the other social media platforms. It was always designed for a select group of people. It was never meant to be this. It should never have been treated in the first place as real authoritative, especially because when you have people who were in positions of power share fake news or dismiss stories. Take, for example, the Hunter Biden laptop story. You had a lot of people who had the coveted blue check mark dismiss it as, again, propaganda, as fake news, and it turned out to be real. This whole idea of relying on social media to also be the end all be all results, it's really up to us to sift through various sources and come up to our own conclusions. Like, for example, it's Hard Lens Media. When you're watching our show here, I want my audience, I want all of you to definitely look at the sources that we have. That's why we have the show notes in the description box
Mhm.
below. That's why we have those links. I want all of you to look at these links and ascertain and come up with your own conclusions too, because it's important for all of us to do our own research. In this day and age where we have information coming at us in a matter of seconds, we all need to be on our point. We have to have our head on the
Mhm.
swivel, and we have to be informed about the world that's happening around us. No longer can it be we just trust the institutions, because we've reported here on this show so many times that Americans are no longer trusting the political system, the media
Yeah.
system, and any other institution that has effectively failed in its job in providing services for the people. So as we continue on with with further elections, it's going to come to a point to where we do need to really have numerous sources that are not controlled by corporations or people deemed to be authoritative by those large big tech corporations too. Because now we have Elon Musk who's saying, okay, you could buy a blue check mark for $8, which if you do that, you're a sucker. If you do that, come on, get out of here. But it's up to us now, people as individuals, to be our own source of getting information, but also shifting through the BS. And it's now more important than ever that people are self-aware of their own environment, because a lot of times people have been tricked on the internet due to fake news. And of course, with midterm elections and eventually this presidential election cycle that we're going to be seeing, we need to be informed about what is happening 24/7. And that means looking through not just one source or trusting one source because you might agree with it, but looking at counter sources and as much information as possible so that we can come up with the correct conclusion about what is really happening.
Absolutely. And the other thing is, I want to say is that, what one other major change that has happened since I was a kid in voting is the fact that people are doing early voting. And a lot of some states are not prepared they don't have it. Their state constitution is such that they can't even really start to process or count those ballots. And this means that we're not getting results on election night. Where they're getting some ideas, but then we're just playing catch up. And I think that has had a very negative impact on people's trust in our electoral process. And I'm all about getting people out to vote and making it easier for them to vote. But there's always this balancing act. And if nobody trusts that process, and one of the problems with the media is now we're checking days later, day 1, day 2, day 3, who's got, somebody's got 65 votes over their, and then they're flip-flopping back and forth. And that gives people a lot more room for speculation.
Right.
It's
So I
happening as
think
well.
as a final note too for this story, and that is, I know a lot of us are burnt out by electoral politics and covering it, or even talking about it. Look, and I understand that for many of the people watching this or who will see this video as a clip, you've resigned from voting. But here's a story that, again, I think there's a perfect way to end this segment. Here's a story, again, that was ignored by the media. I mean, yes, some media outlets did pick it up, but it's called ballot initiatives. We want to
Yes.
start bringing in change. We want to start really changing the system. Ballot initiatives is where it's at. And it's up to all of us to really understand that ballot initiatives, that's what's going to save our democracy when people start demanding their own sovereign rights in their state and, more importantly, protecting themselves as citizens. So, because think about it. Let's say there was a ballot initiative for 24 states, and there's 24 states that are ballot initiative states that want to, I don't know, do something about Medicare for all at a state level.
Mhm.
All those states organize and get themselves together. The conversation about Medicare for all of Americans becomes a real big deal. And I think it's up to all of us to be talking about this and getting involved in any which way we can to start really fighting for that better future. And it starts from the bottom, not the very top. The whole idea of reforming democracy by taking over at party A or party B, that's not going to happen. Anything in Washington, D.C., nothing's going to get done. Let's flip the script. It's time for us to start taking control of what's happening in our backyard so that we can make the change to the top, starting from the bottom, going all the way up.